The new Joker sequel, starring Joaquin Phoenix as the titular Mad Clown and Lady Gaga as Harleen Lee Quinzel, has surprised viewers, but not for great reasons. It's all led to audiences having a lot of questions, like why is this a musical? And why did they try to hide that fact? And who is this even for? Let's take a deeper look to uncover the answers to these questions and more. Before we unpack the movie's deepest issues, let's first take a look at the biggest question that's popped up around the film. Why is it a musical? And a jukebox musical at that. When speaking about the film at the Venice Film Festival, Lady Gaga said,
I wouldn't necessarily say that this is actually a musical. The way that music is used is to really give the characters a way to express what they need to say, because the scene and just the dialogue is not enough.
Which sounds kind of ridiculous on its face, since that's what the music in every musical is for. That is indeed the point of musicals. But now that we've actually gotten to see the film, we can pull out some sense in what she likely meant. The characters are using other people's songs to say what they don't know how to say, in the same way that we might make a mixtape, or now I guess just a playlist, for someone to tell them how we really feel. As opposed to musicals with original songs where characters are singing out their own thoughts and feelings. So okay, that makes some more sense in and of itself. But it still doesn't answer the question of why the Joker sequel of all things is a musical. If the first film was an attempt to make a modern Taxi Driver, and director Todd Phillips and company wanted to continue the Scorsese homage, then following up with a musical featuring the same star and a famous singer-actress is right on track. In between 1976's Taxi Driver and 1982's King of Comedy, which the first Joker film also pulls a lot from, Scorsese released two films. The classic Raging Bull came out in 1980, but before that came 1977's New York, New York, a musical starring Robert De Niro and Liza Minnelli.
Start spreading the news.
It was a very different direction for Scorsese, who was still early in his career at that point, but had spent a good chunk of it working on pretty dark and gritty fare like Taxi Driver and 1973's Mean Streets. But he wanted to try something new.
I had an idea, and the idea was to, on the one hand, embrace the artifice in the good sense, the artifice, the beauty of the old Hollywood, with room enough for a new way of looking at life, a new way of looking at emotions, a new way of examining emotions, a new way of examining lives of creative people.
While the film has, over time, carved out its own spot in the hearts of some fans, it got mixed reviews at best at the time, and bombed at the box office. It's interesting that this is also the direction that Phillips seemed to want to try to go in, instead of maybe going for an after-hours dark comedy vibe, which was Scorsese's follow-up to The King of Comedy.
Art sure is ugly, man.
Yeah, that's not what you know, man, you know? The uglier the art, the more it's worth.
This must be worth a fortune, man.
Musicals generally are seen as a way to give characters an extra dazzling way to share their feelings, going beyond a monologue into something that touches the deepest part of our shared humanity.
Is a place for us somewhere.
And they've been a part of filmmaking since the advent of sound pictures. In fact, the first ever talkie was a musical, 1927's The Jazz Singer.
Watch for the mail, I'll never fail. If you don't get a letter, then you know I'm in jail, hey, hey.
But recently, there's been an odd trend of trying to hide the fact that a film is a musical until audiences are in their seats in the theater. Folie followed the trend set by the Mean Girls sequel of not including any singing or mention of the fact that it was a musical in the promotional material, which was particularly odd since that film was based on the Broadway musical adaptation of the original film. While the fact that it was a musical was a surprise for many going to see that film, the music itself wasn't the film's big issue. You can watch our video on that to find out what was. The songs themselves were perfectly serviceable, and the performers were all incredibly talented. But Folie isn't based on a Broadway musical or even a particularly musical character, so why? Some think it could just be a cynical attempt to cash in on the most viral part of the first film. Others have posited that it's actually a part of an attempt to shrug off some of the fans that latched onto the original film. But it's really indicative of the deeper problem at the heart of the film. One thing that isn't a secret is how much we love autumn, especially the hot tea, cozy sweaters, and tasty food. But even if we might want to slow down and enjoy the season, our busy schedules don't always give us a chance. But that's one place that Factor can be a huge help. Their chefs do all of that prep and cooking work so that those tasty meals show up right on your doorstep, ready to heat and eat. Their meals are also dietitian approved, so you know that you're getting something that's just as nutritious for you as it is delicious. Factor has so many options, from breakfast to lunch to dinner and everything in between, across a whole range from gourmet plus to keto to vegan and veggie and beyond. Their fresh, never frozen meals make it easy to have a tasty meal ready to go in just 2 minutes, without all of the hassle of prep, cooking, or cleanup. If you're ready to make your life a little easier this autumn, head to factormeals.com/thetake50 and use code thetake50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That's code thetake50 at factormeals.com/thetake50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month. While it definitely seems odd at first that a Joker movie would be made into a musical, it didn't have to be bad. Musicals can cover lots of topics and types of characters and situations, and work to unpack some really deep and even dark themes.
She was the happiest corpse I'd ever seen.
The Joker sequel could have used the music in a really interesting way to unpack the psyche of these rather far-out characters, especially when starring a singer as talented as Lady Gaga, who's already proven that she can carry a musical. The film's biggest problem is actually something it shares with its main character. It knows what it wants to be, who it wants to emulate, but it can't quite actually get there. In the same way Arthur lacks the punchiness or charisma to actually elevate himself to the likes of other anti-heroes, of the kind these films clearly want him to emulate, the film itself doesn't manage to connect to any of the things that make those films or musicals great. The best parts of the film generally come when we're brought into Joker and Lee's musical alternate reality. And while it makes sense that their imaginations are based on musicals they've seen, it starts to feel like the creative team behind the movie weren't quite sure how to add their own imprint or personality. But as much as it might have been a shock that this film was made into a musical, it turns out that the musical numbers are one of the more interesting parts of the movie, even if they can't save it. The film mostly wastes Lady Gaga's singing chops, and also Harley as a character by essentially just shoving her into the cardboard Madonna whore dichotomy, with Harley being the whore and Arthur's lawyer being the Madonna. There are definitely some interesting themes within the film, but none of them are really fleshed out to the degree that one would hope to see.
You don't listen, do you? I don't think you ever really hear me.
Because the first film sparked such heated debates, you can check out our video analyzing the first film for more on that, it seems that the team decided to go in the total opposite direction for this one.
That's right, Mary. I'm not political. I'm just trying to make people laugh.
And how's that going for you?
The movie attempts to unpack Arthur's choices from the last film, and this could have been interesting. Having this unhinged, dark character grappling with the horrors he's wrought on a horrific world, and what it means about who he is and his place in all of the madness, could have been an interesting analysis of and follow-up to that first film. But instead, the film just seems overly cautious, desperate to make sure that we know that they think murder is bad and not cool, and that Arthur is an anti-hero and not someone to be emulated. Which, yeah, true, but it's not really tackled in a terribly engaging or compelling way. The themes that are touched on get lost within the fear of looking at anything too closely. Like the way everyone has always separated the real Arthur from this idea of him, first as a weirdo to be mocked, and now as an icon of mayhem.
What's with the face? I mean, are you part of the protest? Or?
No, I don't believe in any of that. I don't believe in anything.
In its attempts to break away from the myriad superhero cliches we've been drowning in during the superhero takeover of the past 15 or so years, the film seems to know what it's running away from, but doesn't have a concrete idea of where it wants to go instead, which leaves it feeling a bit like a movie for no one. Not for musical fans, Joker and Harley Quinn fans, general comic fans, or even anti-hero movie fans.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
As Christy Puchko summed it up in her review of the film for Mashable, Phillips has crafted an astoundingly tedious courtroom drama bedecked with musical numbers, star power, and DC IP. Yet, it still feels like a slog. His pastiche brings nothing new or exciting to the screen for a woefully indulgent runtime of 2 hours and 18 minutes. But does that mean all is lost? Of course not. While the general consensus is that the movie is a miss, there are people who have been loving it, and it's totally possible that in some time it will become a bit of a cult cult classic in its own right. Sound familiar? It was definitely a big swing, and even if it was a miss for most viewers, it could still have an interesting ripple effect of pushing filmmakers to try new things with superhero and associated IP films going forward. The film's biggest downfall is really its fear of going too far in any one direction, which can be tedious in a film about normal characters, but feels especially odd in one about the Joker and Harley Quinn, noted lovers of taking everything over the top.
Hi, babies! Mommy's home! How do you like a hacienda?
Charming.
But if you're looking for something so bad it's entertaining, there might be a better option.
So go back to the club, bear it all, and stalk the kind of people that you enjoy.
Fine. I will.
That's The Take. Click here to watch the video we think you'll love, or here to check out a whole playlist of awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications.